The United States Congress doesn't investigate sports leagues for fun. But right now, lawmakers in Washington are asking the WNBA why Caitlin Clark of the Indiana Fever keeps getting hurt on the court. And the answer they're finding isn't pretty. 3 years of eye pokes, knee shots, a punch to the throat, and refs who looked the other way every single time. So today we're going through every incident, every non-call, and showing you exactly why the US government decided enough was enough as they're setting fire to the WNBA for failing to protect Caitlin Clark. Do you think the WNBA will ever protect Caitlin Clark? Why or why not? Let me know down in the comments below.
Young, wonderful basketball player. Caitlin, I thought that she was treated rather rough, if you want to know the truth. That was a much different kind of an event. That was a pretty bad event.
June 24th, 2026. Caitlin Clark is on the floor going down for a loose ball against the Phoenix Mercury, and Alyssa Thomas drives a knee straight into her groin. That's bad enough on its own. But before Clark can even process what happened, Thomas follows it up with a closed fist to the throat while Clark is still down, defenseless, not even in a position to protect herself. Then Thomas steps over her. The whole sequence takes maybe 2 seconds. Nobody in the building reacts right away because nobody quite believes what they just saw.
I mean, Caitlin to the ground, and ooh, that's a hand to the neck, and then Alyssa Thomas steps over her. See, that's the kind of stuff that can incite some future trouble.
This wasn't some random regular season game either. The Fever and Alyssa Thomas have history, real tension built up over multiple seasons of physical, chippy basketball, and every camera in the building was already locked on Clark because that's just what happens now wherever she plays. So when Thomas hit her, it wasn't hidden in a scrum or buried in a pile. It happened in the open, in real time, in front of officials who were standing right on top of the play. And that's what makes the non-call so hard to swallow. The refs, positioned close enough to see everything, let it slide live. No whistle, no ejection, nothing. It took social media blowing up, replay after replay circulating online, before the league went back and retroactively assessed Thomas a flagrant 2. The punishment? 1 game, for a knee to the groin and a fist to the throat on a defenseless player. Critics called it embarrassing, and they weren't wrong.
Alyssa Thomas, a 1-game suspension. So what they did is they assessed her a flagrant 2 foul for what they say is a reckless contact with her fist to the throat of Caitlin Clark in last night's game. This was not called at all in the game. And then Clark, on a closeout by a Mercury player, came down, landed on a foot, and re-injured her back. That was also not called in the game, which
Clark missed the next 2 games against the Los Angeles Sparks and the Las Vegas Aces. That's the part people need to sit with. This is a player who didn't miss a single game since high school. Not one. Didn't miss a game in college at Iowa either, through years of being the most fouled, most targeted, most watched player in the sport. She played every game, every night, no matter who was trying to knock her down. Then she turns pro, and suddenly it's a quad strain, a groin strain, an ankle injury, a bad back, and now a punch to the throat that ends her availability for stretches of both her 2nd and 3rd seasons. Clark stayed quiet for 9 days after the hit. When she finally spoke, she didn't rage, she didn't demand anyone get fired. She just said what was obvious to anyone who watched the replay. I did think it was a flagrant foul, and our refereeing just needs to be better. She called the play pretty straightforward on review, and she pointed out something that should stop everyone cold. This exact conversation about uncalled fouls and dangerous plays has been happening for 3 years now.
First of all, I know what you guys are going to ask, and I did think it was a flagrant foul, and our reffing just needs to be better.
3 years. That's not one bad night from one official. That's a pattern the league had every chance to fix, and didn't, until Washington started asking questions. Here's a number that should scare every executive sitting in the WNBA office right now. Over the last 3 seasons, Caitlin Clark has absorbed more than 20% of every flagrant foul called in the entire league. One player, out of a pool of roughly 200 active roster spots across all 15 teams, taking a fifth of the punishment the whole league hands out. Break it down further and it gets worse. That works out to roughly one flagrant foul every 8 games she actually plays. Not every season, every 8 games. No superstar in any sport should carry that number, and yet for more than 2 years, nobody with the power to fix it did anything.
As everyone else has seen this angle, I'm calling her in and I'm saying to her, I need answers.
Go back to 2024, Clark's rookie year, and the pattern's already there. In the playoffs against Connecticut on September 22nd, Dejanay Carrington caught Clark right in the eye. No whistle. Clark played the rest of that half-seeing stars, shooting 1 for 9 from the field, and fans online started calling it the worst officiated game they'd ever seen. Earlier that same season, Kennedy Carter blindsided her with a body check nobody called, and Angel Reese caught her with a shot to the head that also went unpunished.
Good. Kennedy Carter now with 12 points off the bench.
Clark! Hammer!
Then in August, Alyssa Thomas, yes, the same Alyssa Thomas, hit her with what commentators described as a crushing body check that sent her straight to the floor. The ref's response? A common foul.
Take another look here at the heavy contact. A little bit of a shoulder there. Not a little bit, a lot of a shoulder there for Alyssa Thomas.
Yeah, they're not going to look at this. They might.
Gotten the fans here fired up.
Just days earlier, Skylar Diggins-Smith had shoved Clark near the bench during a timeout. No call at all. And minutes later, Clark got hit with a technical foul for smacking the backboard out of frustration. Let's repeat that again. Body check, no call. Clark hitting a pad, technical foul.
Okay, by now I'm sure you've seen Skylar Diggins assault Caitlin Clark after Indiana blew out Seattle. What I don't get is the Seattle coach here is the one complaining after the game, and Skylar, tears in her eyes, being like, how dare Caitlin embarrass me? How dare they beat us by 30?
2025 didn't get better, it just got more creative. J.C. Sheldon caught her in the face. Marina Mabrey decked her right after, and both plays got waved off like nothing happened. In September, Jackie Young's hand caught Clark across the face hard enough to make her stumble, and officials logged it as a common foul while the crowd sat there in disbelief. Every single time, the contact looked worse on replay than it did live, and every single time, the whistle either stayed quiet or the call got downgraded.
Third quarter we go. They're trailing by 10. Keep an eye on her and J.C. Sheldon. Clark trying to back her down.
Clark is okay.
Sheldon fouls Clark, hitting her in the face. Clark is upset about that. Then everybody's upset about that. Marina Mabrey comes in. She decks Clark, tempers flaring on both sides.
DeWanna Bonner's name comes up again and again in these conversations too. Another veteran whose physicality toward Clark drew plenty of criticism online, but never any real discipline from the league. And that's the pattern nobody in charge wanted to name out loud. Fouls against Clark get shrunk down on paper, while Clark barely tapping a backboard gets whistled in real time. That's not bad luck spread across 2 seasons and a dozen different officiating crews. That's the same failure repeating itself, game after game, until a fist to the throat in 2026 made it impossible to keep pretending it was random. On the surface, this looks weird. Why would the federal government care what happens in a basketball game? Congress has bigger things to worry about, so why is anyone in Washington spending time on a WNBA foul call? But sports and federal oversight have crossed paths before, and there's a real playbook for how this works. Congress can't fine a league or fire a commissioner directly, but it can send letters demanding answers, and it can hold public hearings that put executives under oath in front of cameras.
A massive group of House Republicans announced the DOJ and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission could crack down on the WNBA after Caitlin Clark was viciously and violently fouled on the court and is being targeted because she is white. Representative August Fugler to the WNBA commissioner, quote, Clark has been hip-checked, poked in the eye, and struck in the throat during games.
That's exactly what happened with baseball, when players and league officials got dragged in front of Congress to explain how the sport let performance-enhancing drugs run wild for years. The WNBA is now getting the same treatment, and the letter arrived at WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's desk, signed by at least 11 members of the largest caucus on Capitol Hill. So why does Clark's situation rise to that level? Money and viewership. In 2024, Clark alone accounted for 25% of the entire league's revenue. The WNBA's $2.2 billion deal with NBC Sports exists largely because networks want her on their broadcasts. And when Clark got hurt last season, viewership dropped by more than half overnight. That's not a niche story anymore. That's a national economic story. And it's exactly the kind of number that gets a congressional staffer's attention.
The incidents go far beyond routine physical play, yet the WNBA, its officiating, have too often failed to address these unacceptable incidents and hold players accountable. Recently, a player even appeared to endorse violence against Clark in a social media post. Oh, crap. Was that the Tiffany Hayes?
The letter to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert isn't vague either. It asks for the league's actual review mechanism for physical hostility and violence on the court, how the WNBA plans to hold players accountable for overly aggressive actions toward players, Clark specifically, and what protections exist against the online harassment and threats she's faced off the court. Congress is even floating the idea that this could touch federal civil rights law if the pattern of targeting amounts to a hostile work environment. The letter goes as far as crediting Clark with transforming women's sports and inspiring a new generation of young girls, which makes the league's failure to protect her look even worse on paper.
Further fueling concerns about the culture surrounding these incidents. In addition, concerning reports suggest that many of these attacks against Caitlin Clark may be racially motivated. As commissioner, you have an obligation to ensure every player competes in a safe and professional environment, both on and off the court, free from violence, discrimination, or retaliation.
Congress can't force Engelbert to suspend a referee, but it can hold hearings, generate headlines, and apply pressure that ties back to the broadcast antitrust protections the league depends on to keep operating the way it does. That pressure alone can push the WNBA toward real change, things like a public review process for missed calls or new reporting standards for player safety. Compare that to the NBA, a league that's dealt with its own referee scandals for decades, gambling controversies, blown calls in the playoffs, and it's mostly handled those quietly, internally, without ever facing this kind of public reckoning. The WNBA is now getting scrutiny the NBA has never had to face, and it's happening in real time, on the record. And there's an irony sitting right in the middle of all this. Clark isn't protected by the league she is championing, yet here's the federal government doing exactly that.
If discrimination or retaliation is occurring, creating a hostile work environment, we support any appropriate investigation by the Department of Justice, Department of Labor, and the EEOC. If true, such conduct could constitute violation of federal civil rights laws.
Linda Cohn just walked away from ESPN after 34 years on air, and instead of a quiet goodbye, she used her platform to torch the WNBA's officiating on her way out. Cohn didn't hold back. The bad officiating in the WNBA has led to most of this minutia. Yeah, most of this controversy, all of these controversies. Be better officials. Is there an agenda here that I don't know about?
The bad officiating in the WNBA has led to most of this minutia. Yeah, most of this controversy. All of these controversies. Be better officials. Is there an agenda here that I don't know about? Speaking of agendas, congratulations to Caitlin Clark. 3 straight years named and voted an All-Star Game starter. That's the great news. 2nd most votes by the fans for Caitlin Clark. The media, 3rd most votes for Caitlin Clark by members of the media.
That last line is the one that spread everywhere because Cohn wasn't some outsider taking shots. She spent 3 decades covering sports at the highest level, and she's saying out loud what fans have been screaming into their phones for 2 years. The refs are the problem. Colin Cowherd took a different angle on why this keeps happening. His argument is that veteran players resent Clark for the spotlight she brought overnight. Private jets, sold-out arenas, TV deals nobody thought possible 2 years ago, and instead of embracing it, some of them are biting the hand that feeds them.
You moved her road games to bigger arenas to accommodate the fans. You were flying the last 6 rows of Southwest Airlines until she made such an impact, you pivoted to private jets. And she's not on the 30-year poster, but Paige Beckers and Angel Reese are. What? I mean, recently there were TV games. Hers got double the rating of Asia Wilson, the best player in the league, the 3-time champ and the 4-time MVP. Double the rating. This is a paranoid, weird, insular league.
Stephen A. Smith pushed back on that read entirely. Smith's case is built on the numbers, not emotion. Clark absorbing over 20% of the league's flagrant fouls despite being one player out of more than 200 on active rosters. For Smith, this was never about Clark's game or her attitude. It's about refs failing to apply the same rulebook to every player on the floor, night after night.
You're not the NBA. You don't have an 11-year, $77 billion contract. You are building the league. You just reached an incredible collective bargaining agreement. You understand they did a great job with that. The league is growing, and it's reaching some of its aspirations, no doubt, but there's still a lot more work to be done. Don't get in the way of the cash cow. You don't sit up there and pave a way for her and don't compete. Nobody's implying that. But you certainly ride that tidal wave of popularity and use it to your advantage to build the game, not compromise and hurt the game by taking her out.
3 commentators, 3 different arguments, and they all land in the same place. The league failed to protect its biggest star, whether that's jealousy driving the fouls or officiating driving the inconsistency. Sophie Cunningham didn't come at this from a broadcast booth. She came at it from inside the locker room. When asked what the league actually does to help players deal with online hate, Cunningham didn't sugarcoat it. I don't know what our league does to help with that.
What resources does the league provide for you guys as players to kind of help you try to filter through some of the hate and negative things that come through on social media?
I think that I don't know what our league does to help with that. If they really do anything, you can put out statements as much as you want.
She followed that up with a blunt truth about fame in this business. You're in an entertainment business. That's when mental toughness comes in. If you're going to live by praise, you're going to die by the hate. That's not a talking head guessing what's happening behind the scenes. That's a teammate who sees Clark at practice, in the training room, on every flight and every bus. And that's why Cunningham's words carry more weight than anything said on a national broadcast. Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, the whole Fever roster has stood behind Clark through every one of these incidents because they're the ones who watch her get up off the floor. Add that locker room loyalty to Cohn's blunt criticism, Cowherd's jealousy theory, and Smith's numbers, and you get a wall of pressure from every direction, inside the league and outside it, loud enough that Washington couldn't ignore it anymore.
But at the end of the day, you're in an entertainment business. That's when mental toughness comes in. If you're going to live by praise, you're going to die by the hate. And so I think that's on the individual person to have mental toughness. Some people can deal with it, some people can't. And I think you can see the ones who can. And unfortunately, there are some who can't. And it's not beneficial to them. But you can't control what other people say or what other people do. All you can do is control yourself, how you treat people. Speak up, and support people who, maybe don't have a voice or don't have the courage to do that. But, it's one of those things. You're in the entertainment business and you have to expect it.
The NBA reviews every close game and posts a public report on missed calls within 2 minutes of the final buzzer. Anyone can pull it up online and see exactly which calls the refs got wrong, who missed them, and why. The WNBA does none of that. No public report, no breakdown, nothing fans or players can point to and say, there, that's the mistake, that's who made it. The NBA's last 2-minute report exists because the league got tired of arguing about missed calls after every close finish, so they built a system that forces referees to own their mistakes in public. Every whistle and every no call in the final 2 minutes gets graded and released. And if a ref blows a call that changes a game, everyone knows it by the next morning. That kind of exposure keeps officials sharp, because nobody wants their name attached to a bad call with millions of people watching the replay.
Obviously, not every, they're humans, looking at technology. Basketball is a little more complex than tennis, for instance, around technology of officiating. So we're looking at a variety of different dimensions.
The WNBA has nothing close to that. Clark herself pointed out that teams already submit clips of missed calls to the league office, but nothing changes afterward. No public accountability, no visible discipline, just clips disappearing into a file somewhere while the same mistakes keep happening on the floor. Clark's actual proposal is simple, and it's not about punishing anyone. She said the technology can get better and refs should get treated like full-time employees instead of part-time contractors, paid accordingly, so they've got the time and the support to get calls right. Right now, WNBA officials work part-time jobs around their referee duties, which means less practice, less film study, and less oversight compared to officials in bigger leagues. That's not a small detail. That's the whole problem sitting in plain sight for years while nobody fixed it.
The technology can get better. We can treat the referees a little bit better, pay them like they're full-time employees. I think things like that. And
this is exactly where the congressional investigation could force real change. Lawmakers can push the league toward transparency requirements, a standardized review process like the NBA's, or even third-party oversight that takes grading out of the league's own hands. Kathy Engelbert's response so far has been generic statements instead of a real plan, and critics like Christine Brennan have called out how she avoided addressing the Thomas incident directly, offering vague comments instead of a real answer. That's the pattern people are angry about. A commissioner reacting only after Washington got involved, instead of fixing this 2 years ago when the warning signs were already stacking up. Clark never asked for anyone to get fired. Her comments point toward pay, technology, and treating referees like professionals. Structural fixes that would help every player in the league, not just her. Full-time refs, better replay tools, and real transparency would protect every rookie walking into this league behind her. So nobody else spends 3 seasons absorbing hits nobody's willing to call. And with federal pressure now sitting on the league's desk, 2026 is shaping up to be the year the WNBA finally has to answer for it. This was never about one punch to the throat. Congress isn't digging through 3 years of flagrant fouls to punish Alyssa Thomas. They're forcing the WNBA to answer for a pattern it let slide since 2024. Full-time refs, real transparency, technology that actually works, that's what's on the table now. 2026 is the season it all collides. Clark healthy, Boston, Mitchell, Hull, Cunningham surrounding her, and a real shot at MVP and a championship banner in Indiana. So keep watching, keep talking about it, because the league only moved once people refused to look away. Do you think the WNBA will ever protect Caitlin Clark? Why or why not? Let me know down in the comments below. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.